Welcome to the Sane Estate, a podcast from Ipswich, Massachusetts, an historic town with cobblestone charm, salty traditions, and just enough civic dysfunction to keep things interesting. I'm John Woolforth, your curious Sherpa, on this journey that may not go where you'd like, but I can assure you that many words will be said. Every episode, we wander the grounds of local life, from policy to porch gossip with a slightly raised eyebrow. Let's roll. Today on the Sane Estate, I am thrilled to have with us Glenn Gibbs, longtime Ipswich planning director, recent interim zoning wrangler, and the man most likely to know what you can build, where you can build it, and why someone will yell at you if you try. For 25 years, Glenn helped shape what Ipswich looks like. And now he's helping us get our heads around one of its most controversial mandates yet, the state's 3A housing law. We'll talk about growth when there's no more room to grow, infrastructure held together with hope, and what zoning really says about the kind of town we want to be. And of course, we finish with a lightning round so weird, even Glenn won't be able to regulate it. Okay, Glenn, thanks so much again for having us.
Happy to be here
and being with us. You were the town's planning director from 94 to 2019, 25 plus years, and also served as the town's interim director for the much of 22.
Yes.
What's changed the most about this town, how this town approaches growth, and what hasn't changed at all?
Well, I'd say that the town's goals and strategies for addressing development have remained pretty consistent over the past 30 years. And that's reflected in some of the town's planning documents, the 2003 and the 2021 community development plans, and the 2006 and 2020 housing plan production plans are quite similar in their goals. I think if there's anything different, I would say maybe over the past 6 or 7 years, there's been, I think the town's maybe been a little less successful in accomplishing or putting into action some of its goals that are from those plans. And I'd say there's a couple of reasons for that, or actually mainly probably one primary reason, which is that there's been a lot of turnover in the Department of Planning and Development, which is responsible for regulating or guiding planning, development, and conservation of land in Ipswich. In the last 4 years, there have been 3 different planning directors, and that's not including my stint as an interim in 2022. It's very hard to do long-term planning when you're undergoing that kind of rapid transition.
Any critiques for the last 3 zoning planners?
Besides stay a little longer?
That would probably be the most important one, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes. Everyone has their reasons for moving on, and there are different reasons for all those things that happen. But yes, it's important, I think, to be effective, to have some consistency in your staffing, and that's one of the things that I found appealing and useful, and a reason to stay was that we had a good consistency generally while I worked here over the years. And of course, I provided some consistency by being here for as long as I did.
So the last 7 years or so, things have sort of evolved a bit differently, you thought. And
well, I just think that the town's proactiveness and as it relates to things, zoning issues and so forth, has been maybe. Well, I don't want to use the word lackluster. I'm just saying it's primarily a function of really bouncing around. We had 2 different planning directors in the course of 2 years, so
right.
We spent a lot of time just searching for someone when I was involved in some of those processes. But so I'm not trying to cast stones or anything like that. And I think that mean, we did manage during that period to adopt 3A, although certainly the turnover made it a lot harder.
Yeah, I would think that, of course, the attrition rate does not contribute to progress.
No.
Okay. Some see 3A, the 3A statute enacted by the Commonwealth as state regulatory overreach. Mm-hmm. Others as an overdue opportunity. You've written that 3A zoning would actually allow less density than current zoning. Why do you think this disconnect persists, and what can be done about it?
Well, I think there's a couple things at play here. One, when the state rolling out of 3A was a little bumpy, and even though they addressed the glitches, a lot of the glitches early on, I think the perception that the statute was not thoroughly thought out kind of persists. But second, and I think more importantly, I think people have assumed that every community to which 3A applies is going to have a significant impact on the development opportunities or what can be developed in their towns. And without not realizing that the impact of 3A is largely driven by what a town has doing in its current zoning, how receptive it's been to multifamily development, and also how it applies that the 3A to when it actually does it, how does it do it? Mm-hmm. In Ipswich, we have for decades, Ipswich has been following the objectives of 3A. And
interesting.
So when this came forward and when we put it into place, we just used, we applied it to areas where we already had multifamily zoning. So it was an easy reach. It was an easy thing for us to achieve, and it doesn't have a significant impact. As you said, it actually allows less than what our current bylaw does. But to answer the last part of your question, how do we get rid of the misperception? I think it's just going to fade over time as people realize that these fears of unchecked development aren't going to come to pass. Yeah.
So you're saying basically that Ipswich for many years has had an iteration of the 3A law.
Absolutely, and in fact, we have. If you look at our community development plan from 2021, it actually has a recommended action that's almost identical to what 3A requires, and we had that in place before 3A came about. I mean, I think it's fair to say that if other communities had been as farsighted in this regard as Ipswich has, the state wouldn't have felt the need to create 3A in the first place.
Well, I feel better. I feel a bit better, yeah. I like that answer. Good answer, Glenn. All right, so moving on. Over the past couple of years, you've played a significant part in developing a zoning bylaw that complies with the 3A zoning statute. However, with water bans, infrastructure constraints, and an aging sewer system, how do we realistically talk about growth when our capacity feels maxed out?
Okay. Well, first, as I said in my answer to my last question, because of the way that we currently handle zoning and in our current situation with multifamily in downtown, 3A is not going to lead to significant additional development and growth beyond what we're currently experiencing. Second, as to the question itself about infrastructure, it's not the case that our infrastructure is maxed out, or is it the case that we're unable to handle additional development? Yes, we do experience water restrictions most summers, But that has more to do with weather patterns and state regulation than it does with water usage, which actually over the last 15 years has decreased by, I think it's 12%. While during that same period of time, we actually had a slight, 3% increase in population. So it's not water usage that's at play here. Second, yeah, we do have an aging water and sewer distribution system. But the town's done a pretty good job of updating that when it's had the opportunity to do that. And the fact is that that system needs to be updated, whether or not there's more development or not. And in fact, adding more ratepayers is not likely to add much to the cost because it provides more ratepayers, but to share the burden of the to share the burden of those costs.
Okay, so you wouldn't feel that taxes would need to be raised to facilitate more improvements?
Well, I mean, again, there are a lot of infrastructure needs that the town has. Those needs exist now. They're needed now, and they're not. And there are efforts underway to address pretty much all of those. And so, you know, it's not necessary or even realistic because of the way that, you know, the law works as far as property rights and being able to build, to just shut down development. And I think the town is pretty much doing the right kinds of things and trying to address, you know, to balance development and preservation.
I think to me that the two scariest words about the whole 3A thing is by right. What's your take?
It's a bit of a misnomer, the way that the state uses it, frankly, because by right implies, and the way that I've always thought about by right is that you're pretty much allowed to do that without any kind of a review process. But that's not what the statute says. What it says is that you just can't require a special permit. It doesn't say you can't do other things like require site plan review.
Okay.
The town has had site plan review for 40 years and has done a very effective job of using that. Now, right now, prior to 3A, we use site plan review for non-residential development and the special permits for residential. So we're changing gears a little bit here to comply with 3A, to use the site plan review process instead of special permit. There's been an argument that, well, because you can't, there's not quite as much teeth in a site plan review as there is special permit, then we're going to just be opening the doors. Well, it's not the case. I mean, first of all the other regulations, the 3A that we've adopted has all the same regulations as it relates to building height and the setbacks and all that kind of thing. So that's not changing. And if you look at the history of the town in the downtown area, the area where 3As are applying, the last 25 years, last 30 years, there have been about, I think 26 applications for special permit, and they've all but one was approved initially, and that one was later approved through litigation. I mean, through a settlement, and so the town doesn't use, in other words, the town doesn't use the special permit process as a backdoor way of sort of preventing development, which some communities do. We use it to enhance and improve projects, and just as we use site plan review. So all these projects are still going to have site plan review. There's a public hearing. People are able to come out and comment, and so I think that's the response I would give to folks, that we're not talking about a process, as a lot of people were arguing, that was completely unregulated. It's not the case.
So there's no 49er type rush to build a bunch of things in Ipswich once 3A passes?
No. I think you're going to see development. I think that there's going to be a question in some instances whether or not someone decides to use 3A because it's just an option, it's not a requirement. Or they use the existing zoning, because as we've already said, there are cases where they're going to be able to get greater density
Right.
in using the special permit process. And there was already a project that was done in town. They could have waited for 3A. They chose not to because they got a greater density. That's the project at 1-2 Washington Street.
Okay, Bruni.
No, not Bruni.
I'm sorry.
No, next to
the Washington Street development, right?
yes,
Call it.
next to the bank, and that actually has a few more units. So they chose to go the special permit route. So we may see more of that as we go through.
Let's see. Okay.
Passes.
So you've spent decades helping Ipswich balance development and preservation. Do you think the town has found a healthy balance, or are we still swinging between NIMBY and sprawl?
I think the town has balanced development, balance between development and preservation for a very long time, for as long as I've been here. I think it's done a good job of achieving that healthy balance. But I would like to say something about NIMBY, and NIMBY, which is an acronym for not in my backyard.
Correct.
And sprawl, which sort of describes development that is outside of the areas where there's existing development and that's supported by infrastructure, and it's often disconnected and poorly designed, and that's sort of what we refer to as sprawl. So as far as in regard to the sort of NIMBYism, I think first of all, it's important to distinguish between legitimate and thoughtful comments from neighbors and abutters about a specific project. I think that's welcomed and appreciated by review boards. To distinguish between that and opposition that's based almost solely on just the fact that it's a use that they don't want to have near them, and that's what we would call NIMBYism.
I think it's always going to be in someone's backyard, essentially, right?
Correct.
That's not, it just has to happen that way. I mean, somebody's going to be unhappy. But what you're saying is that all the proper consideration is there for any type of project. Yeah,
I mean, let me give you you're actually right about that. That there's, but here's a case in point, a classic case of NIMBYism. And again, I'm not saying that this is the standard in Ipswich, but it does happen. So last year, the Essex County Habitat for Humanity proposed a two-family, a duplex, 2 affordable home ownership units, long-term protected, on a property almost 4 acres in size, located in a neighborhood west of Route 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now that project was made possible by the Ipswich Housing Authority, which owned the property and selected Habitat to do the project. And it was also enabled by the town's Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which provided a significant subsidy to help make that project happen. So the project met all of the zoning requirements for the property,
mm-hmm.
met a number of important town objectives, and was not just unanimously but enthusiastically approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. But despite that, there were neighbors that showed up and spoke in opposition to the project because it was going to create additional traffic and it was out of character with the neighborhood. That's NIMBYism.
Sure.
As for sprawl, I think because the town, in large part because the town has used its zoning bylaw to take actions like encouraging development in the town center where there's existing development and infrastructure, allowed for independent dwelling units in existing single-family houses and also in buildings on single-family lots, accessory buildings, that may have been used for something other than residential. And also because of the what we call open space residential subdivisions, which we encourage, which and concentrate development in small areas of a lot and sets aside the rest for open space protection
Correct.
permanently. I think because of those things in large part, we've largely avoided the kind of significant sprawl that we see happen in some communities.
Well, is it true we haven't even met the threshold for low-income housing in this town?
We're just below it right now. We're at about 9%. The threshold is 10%. Should the project, the Essex Patchers, go through, and I think everything is looking pretty likely that that's the case, all of those units will count, even though they're not all going to be affordable. 25% is required to be affordable, but because it's a rental project, all of those units will count toward the inventory.
Oh.
So that will put us substantially over the 10%. And then adding to that, when the 50 or so units that will be built at 1-2 Washington Street,
Right.
Those are all affordable 100%. And so those will all be counted as well. So with those two added on, we're going to be over the 10% significantly for a period of time.
Well,
Good for at least a decade, probably longer.
Well, that's a positive development then.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So you're also involved with the Ipswich Refugee Program.
Mm-hmm.
What does your work with housing for newcomers and refugees reveal about the larger challenges of affordability and access in Ipswich?
Yeah, I've been on the board of the Ipswich Refugee Program for the last 4 years, and I also serve as their housing coordinator. And I can say it's been a revealing and sobering experience. It's confirmed they kind of already knew, which is that Ipswich has done a pretty good job of encouraging and providing housing for seniors and for smaller households. But the opportunities for housing for larger families, which is the case with many of the immigrant families that have come in, are few and far between.
Right.
We were fortunate enough to find a 4-bedroom apartment in Ipswich Public Housing for one of the families fairly early on, but we were not able to provide for any of the rest, and most of them have now since moved out of state to parts distant, and now that's not necessarily a problem for the Ipswich Refugee Program, because its objective is to integrate immigrant families into American society, whether that's in Ipswich or somewhere else. But it does underscore the severity of the affordability problem in Ipswich, which has been exacerbated in recent years by a significant increase in rental costs in town, so that the gap between the rents here and those closer into Boston, which has always existed,
Right.
has gotten smaller.
So I was going to say the refugees that come into Ipswich are, for the most part, interim residents, but you're saying essentially they just can't afford to stay.
It's the latter. They can't afford to stay. I mean, many of the immigrants that we were dealing with in the 4 years I've been here were Afghans who came over after the Taliban takeover, and so I think we had over 20 Afghan, and we had a couple of families that had 9 people in it, or had 7 people, and so that we were able to find temporary housing for them. The Ascension Church stepped up in a big time and provided housing, and we found other ways to put them up. But the getting from the temporary to the permanent was the issue that we had, even though we put in applications everywhere we could. But there are just very few opportunities for us, particularly again for larger families.
Well, I appreciate your efforts in helping these people, and I think it's important that we do that. Some say Ipswich is becoming, unaffordable for its own children. Do you believe the town has a moral or civic obligation to create housing not just for newcomers, but for the people who grew up here?
I think the best way to answer that question is to note what residents have said over the past 30 years, and I expect for a lot longer, about what do they like, one of the things they like most about living here, and it's been the social and economic diversity of the community of Ipswich, which is not found in a lot of the surrounding communities, at least to the extent that it is here. And that's impossible to maintain if we don't maintain a range of housing opportunities for a range of income groups in the town. I guess that's.
So would it be fair to say that the effort is there, but it's not necessarily something that could be practical to achieve because of the costs of things and the constant pressure for gentrification, for example?
Well, I don't want to be that pessimistic about it, but I would say that, it's one of the reasons, again, for 3A, is that the notion of that if you build more housing, even if it's not affordable, you've got to reduce demand, or you've got to increase supply for demand, and that'll affect costs in a positive way.
Right.
But it's not. I guess what I would try to convey is that it's not easy, and it's not going to be immediate. And
Imagine.
One of my concerns about 3A, frankly, is that is not that it's going to overwhelm. It's certainly not going to overwhelm Ipswich, and I don't think it's going to overwhelm too many places. But is that is it going to be enough to make a serious dent in the need? And I'm not saying it won't, but that's, if I have to worry about it, that would be my worry more than the other.
Well, I think the country as a whole is facing the same challenges as far as housing goes.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
So we're all in the same boat.
We are, but there are. Here in Eastern Mass, particularly, it's more of an issue than it is in upstate New York, where I grew up.
Really? Well, we need to work on that, Glenn, huh? Volunteer boards do much of the heavy lifting in Ipswich, including the planning board. Yep. Do you think we ask too much of citizen volunteers when it comes to understanding complex legal frameworks like 3A?
Question. I think first, it's important to understand that boards like the Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, are prescribed by state statute, and so we have to have them. Every community in Massachusetts has to have a planning board. It has to have a conservation commission if they have wetlands. It has to have a zoning board of appeals. So we couldn't change that on our own, even if we wanted to. That said, I think that communities have the ability to find responsible citizens that can serve on these boards and perform that role that have been assigned to them, those responsibilities. But they do need to provide support and resources. And I think that Ipswich has done a pretty good job of finding fair-minded and qualified candidates to serve on their boards, and a pretty good job in providing both administrative and even professional support, which is especially important for a board like the Planning Board or the Conservation Commission or the Zoning Board of Appeals, which are authorized to act on behalf of the town, which not all boards and commissions are able to do that, but
right.
Those are. So
do you feel there's enough changeover in town government? Because as the town evolves, so should the government itself, the people who are in it. Do you feel that there's not enough changeover in the people that run the committees and the councils and the planning boards and so on?
I haven't found it, no. In fact, I would say the opposite, that I think that boards that have
Besides planning director, yes.
well, well, that's that's staff, but you're talking about volunteers.
Okay.
I think that it's important to have some consistency, and so I've heard that well that person's been on the board for 5 years, that they need to get off. Yes, you can have people that are stale, but I much more worry about boards that are in constant transition and that people are leaving after 1 year and so forth. Than I do about someone being there a long time. People, I've worked with planning board members or other board members that have been there for 10, 15 or more years, and they are often the best. That means they're dedicated, and they put a lot. So I mean, a lot of it really depends upon the individual, but I don't see turnover as being something that's to be desired. And anyway, I mean, there are 5-year terms, usually 3-year terms. They don't have to be reappointed, and sometimes they're not. So, so there's always that option for change.
The reason I brought that up is because often, I mean, you hear a lot about this with the federal government, for example, and Congress itself, and the average age of Congress, I believe, is around 64. Okay, which doesn't seem old, but it's an average. It's not the actual amount of people in there who have been there for literally decades. Different thing for the town. I get what you're saying. So,
yeah, and I think if you look at the makeup of the boards, they tend to be around average median age. I mean, there are some older folks that are generally very good to have on there because they bring a lot of. It's wonderful to have someone on a board that has a long history with that. They can and just like it's good to have a staff person that's been around a while that can speak to history. You can run into an issue where someone is just picking up the paycheck and not really doing much anymore.
Right.
But I don't think that's been much of a problem here in Ipswich.
You've spoken often about how zoning decisions ripple through people's day-to-day lives. How would you describe that impact in your own words? And is there a decision you made that still resonates deeply with you, maybe one that you particularly regret or feel proud of?
Well, I guess I would say, first of all, that I can't think of any major planning initiative that I've been involved with that I felt went awry or did not meet the objectives that were set out, which is a good thing. But if I had to pick a project that I'm particularly proud of, a zoning initiative, because there's sort of projects like the Riverwalk project and some others that I've worked on that I'm very proud of. But when focused on zoning changes in particular, it would probably be the Great Estate zoning provision. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but and people that have been here relatively a short time probably don't know much about it at all. But back in the 1990s, there were 3 former large residential estates that had been used for decades by religious orders.
Interesting. No, I did not know that.
One of them was the La Salette property on Turner on La Salette. Well, La Salette was the seminary on Topsfield Road. Sorry, and then there was another on County Road, the Salesian Society, Don Bosco, and then the third was the Sisters of Notre Dame on Jeffers Neck.
That's still there, correct?
And that one of the 3 is still there. But the other 2 were, one at that point when we put the provision in was had already ceased operation, and the other was close to that happening. And so we knew that there was going to be, these properties were going to be turning over. And we also knew that the option that existed for doing that primarily was for development was single-family subdivision, which we didn't think was the best way to preserve the historic buildings on the property and to preserve the view corridors of the streets and to preserve that open space.
Right.
Because that doesn't typically happen in a subdivision. So we worked on this provision, put it into place, and in exchange for the expanded development options that were provided, we required that they do the three things that I sort of just mentioned: provide a significant set aside of publicly protected, publicly accessible open space permanently, to preserve the view corridor along which the streets were located, and to, what was the third one? Open space protection and
Do you have the Jeopardy song anywhere?
yeah. View corridor and, oh, of course, and the preservation of the historic buildings. And so that led to the two projects that happened. One was the golf course residential development at Turner Hill.
Yeah.
And the other was the research and development facility with manufacturing component, New England Biolabs, at the property, the former Don Bosco property on County Road. Both of which have been a big success, and have created hundreds of acres of publicly protected or publicly accessible open space, which have generated a lot of tax dollars.
Important.
Which is a good thing, and have preserved the character of those neighborhoods and have preserved the historic buildings, and created a model for other communities that have similar properties to emulate.
Well, that's quite an accolade then, I would say.
It was a satisfying series of events, and it keeps. Recently, New England Biolabs added a second phase, and that they're doing it in a way that it's concentrated, it's very well done, and it's creating lots of jobs.
Fantastic.
And it's just it's been a big win for the town.
Awesome. If you could wave a wand and fix one piece of Ipswich's infrastructure, physical or procedural, what would it be and why?
That's a good question. I think I'll go with the physical, and I guess the answer would be sort of dependent upon, does this wand also pay for the cost of this infrastructure improvement or not? If it does,
that's big.
If it pays for the cost, then I'd say I'd probably use it for the water treatment plant that was recently approved by town meeting and by the electorate, which authorizes the expenditure of up to $50 million.
Correct. Yeah.
For that water treatment plant replacement, and it'd be nice to take that $50 million off the table. If the wand doesn't do that, gives you approval but doesn't pay for it, I might put the wand back in my pocket and use it for regulatory approval and replacement and relocation of the sewage treatment or sewage pumping station at the town wharf, which is well beyond its useful life, and which in the not too distant future is going to be regularly flooded.
Wow. Yeah, that's not good, is it?
Or I might use the wand to deal with the issue that we've been having now, the regulatory issue with the outfall for the wastewater treatment plant. That's it has the potential to really seriously undermine the health of the clamming industry.
Well, if I had that wand, I know where that $50 million would end up.
in your pocket.
If it fits. With your vast planning experience, what's one piece of wisdom you wish more people understood about how towns actually grow or don't grow?
Well, how and the extent to which a community grows is really based on a number of factors. Zoning regulations, which was the subject of the 3A discussion, is a big determinant because it sets the parameters for the what and the where and the magnitude of development, so it's very important. But it's not the only consideration. There are other factors like development feasibility, local and economic, regional, local and regional economic conditions, and how how desirable the community is as a place to live. Those are all other factors which can be equally or even more important than zoning. What I wish that people understood better is that growth in and of itself is not bad. In fact, a community that is not growing or evolving is usually not a very healthy one.
It's going to be economically depressed.
Yeah. So what's much more important is the question to ask is it beneficial development or is it detrimental development? Well, beneficial development maintains and enhances existing neighborhoods. It's respectful of town character. It helps to create community, and it meets community needs without overtaxing resources. That's beneficial development. Detrimental development, it's just the opposite.
Right.
So, to put it another way, whether or not the nature of development is a far better gauge of whether or not development is beneficial or detrimental than the magnitude of that development.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I wish people understood a little better about growth and development.
It is a lot. I mean, I can see where there's maybe a catch-22 in that for people, the way that they look at it. And I mean, I for one would feel that way in some sense. If you want to grow, but you have to grow 2%, then that brings in the whole NIMBY thing and everything else, right? So there's a lot to be considered there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Now, it's time for the lightning round.
All right, I have no idea what this is, so I hope I'm ready for it.
The theme is Zone Me Once. So, do you secretly wish to have 5 corners light up your life?
What does that mean? Light up my life.
The traffic light.
Oh, the traffic light.
Controversy.
What that's a good question. I appreciate the concern of those who say, is a traffic light really the way to go here? I've experienced driving through Route 1 in Maine and other places where you've got one traffic light in the town, and in the summer and everything backs up incredibly. So I've mostly over the years been a proponent of let's try to deal with this issue without putting in a traffic light. But I'm not saying that I would go to the mat on that, but that would be my initial reaction to it. I'm not involved in the details of it anymore. So.
Okay. All right. So this question is going to basically reveal a bit of my cynicism, or
all right.
We'll just call it cynicism. You're forced to rename one town street. What do you call it? Kick the can down the road, or stay in your lane?
Those are my only options, huh?
Or if you feel free to, if you've got a better one, feel free to throw it out there.
Kick the can down the road, or what's the other one?
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. Well, I guess between not very good options, I'd probably say stay on your lane.
Everyone should know their job and stick to it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not a big fan of kicking things down the road if we can avoid it.
Yes, that's again, I've heard this term many times, but I'm not going to basically elaborate on who told me anything. All right, so the next question then would be the water ban is in effect because someone brushed their teeth. Yet you don't seem concerned. Just how big is your secret aquifer?
Wow. It's like we're actually in more of a water restriction than an outright ban, but that's quibbling. But as I said before, water usage is an issue that we need to be concerned about. I mean, we can't just bury our heads in the sand, to say. And there actually are efforts underway in the town too, and they actually identified a source that they're working on diligently to try to get approvals for. It's not an easy thing. That would
Intriguing.
substantially add to the town's water supply. It would be years out, and I think that, as demonstrated by the fact that through conservation efforts, that water usage has actually gone down.
12%. I remember you said that.
Yeah, I don't think that we're in any danger of running out of water, but it certainly makes sense to be looking at that issue and trying to identify possibilities for enhancing, increasing the water supply. I mean, it's got its own dangers because if you're taking that water and you're putting it in the public space, you're still using water. So, but I do think that, well, enough said on that.
I'm a huge cheerleader for it because I'm an avid gardener, so it's kind of important to me. So let's do it.
All right.
Okay, clam flats or clam rolls? Which do you find more palatable?
Clam flats, because I actually don't eat clams. I have an intolerance for them. And
oh, okay,
so
that's acceptable then.
I don't like them all that much either, but it's the intolerance that keeps me from eating them at all.
Very well. So clam flats it is.
Clam flats it is.
Okay. Have you finished your Ipswich replica built from Legos yet?
I have not. I didn't know that there was such a thing.
Oh, Legos are out of control now. You haven't heard about this? I mean, Legos are used in everything. It's a very popular toy all of a sudden.
Yes, but is there a toy for, is there an Ipswich replica toy or no?
No, I'm being facetious with you.
Yes, so I get it. No, I haven't. I'm not actually, I never really got into Legos. My son is really big into it, and my daughter actually loves it too.
Oh, well, see, there you go.
And they're adults now, so they still do it.
And they still do it.
So I love Legos. I almost went to the Legos factory, wherever it was, a while ago, and didn't quite make it. But
really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I can't remember where it was, but it was somewhere when I was on vacation.
To me, it's the new Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, you can build castles with it too.
Yeah, so it turns into Dungeons and Dragons.
It serves
too.
both purposes. Yeah. All right, bonus question.
Bonus, okay.
Be honest. How many times have you driven around town muttering, "This wouldn't have happened if they listened to me in 2007," under your breath?
I try not to do that, and I haven't really done it very much. But I guess on occasion we could say, well, you know what, it would have been better if we'd done such in this. But I guess one of the things that I could say when looking back is that a lot of the stuff that I worked on and worked on with others and hoped did indeed come to fruition. And so I have a lot more of that. When I'm out down walking on the Riverwalk and there's some kind of event going on, and I could say, geez, if I hadn't been around, this Riverwalk wouldn't be here. I have more of those moments, which are very satisfying than the others.
It's all you can ask for, right? Bonus question.
Oh, okay.
The Sane Estate. Great podcast or greatest podcast?
Oh, the greatest podcast, no doubt.
Good answer, Glenn. Good answer. I like that. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
John, thanks
Appreciate
for
it.
having me. I really enjoyed it.
All right. That was Glenn Gibbs, planner, policy interpreter, and the closest thing Ipswich has to a human zoning encyclopedia. Whether you agree with his plans or not, you've got to admit someone who spent this much time trying to make growth make sense, even when infrastructure says no, and the people say, not here. Now, if you're listening and thinking, I've got a story to tell, you probably do. We're always looking for new guests on the Sane estate who know Ipswich, love Ipswich, or have at least yelled at a town meeting once. If you'd like to get involved or if you'd like to be on the show, reach out to guest@saneestate.com. Whether you're a local legend, quiet observer, or can navigate five corners effortlessly, we want to hear from you. Thanks for listening today and joining us on the Sane Estate. Leave us a review, share the show, or file a special permit to recommend it to your neighbors. Until next time, stay weird, stay local, and most of all, stay sane.